If you're over 60 and you're not lifting weights, you're actively losing muscle. My name is Donovan Belcourt. I'm a personal trainer that specializes in working with people over 60 to help them build muscle and build strength. Now, if you're watching this video, you're likely already strength training or you're thinking about strength training. But the problem is that you're still likely not doing it in a way that actually grows muscle and builds strength, especially if you're over 60. People over 60 need to be lifting a specific way. Now, there's two problems. The first problem is people do too much aerobic exercise. Aerobic exercise requires a ton of energy. Even going for a 5 or 6 mile or even 3 mile walk requires a lot of energy. You burn a lot of calories. Often we're not replenishing these calories with carbohydrates and adequate protein, thus muscle loss, because aerobic exercise does not build muscle. As much as you may feel it in your legs or in your lungs, you're not actually getting stronger or adding tissue, especially if you've been walking for a few months. Your body adapts to that quickly. Now, number two, if you're already lifting weights, most people, and especially people over 60, aren't lifting weights in a way that actually makes them stronger and better. People over 60 do respond to strength training by getting stronger and building muscle, but they don't respond as much as someone who's younger than them. So the solution for that, and the data backs this up, and my anecdotal evidence, is that people that are older need to be strength training more frequently and more intensely than people who are younger. This doesn't mean that they need to be doing as much weight as them, but relative intensity needs to be higher for people that are over 60, and frequency needs to be higher, which means you need to be lifting weights 3 to 5 days a week with enough intensity to grow muscle and build strength. Now, in the beginning, most people that are new to strength training, especially if you're older, can't handle this intensity and frequency. So like anything, you slowly build into it over time until you can strength train 3 to 5 days a week, probably just 20 minutes in short, intense bouts to get the strength and muscle building adaptations that you're looking for. So I've worked with hundreds of people over 60, and the first thing that I do is I take a look at their full picture of what they're doing for exercise. Most often when people think of exercise, they think of aerobic exercise, and a lot of people that come to me start with going for walks or going for bike rides or swimming. These are all great activities for cardiorespiratory health, but they ignore the problem that people actually have, which is a reduction in strength and a reduction in muscle mass over time. So when I design a program for someone, the first thing that I try to do is I try to cap how much aerobic activity exposure they're getting, because I want them to focus on short, intense strength training sessions until they can develop the capacity to go 20, 30, even 45 minutes of really aggressive strength training. And this is true for people in their 60s or even all the way up to 90. They need to learn, their mind and body needs to learn how to tolerate short and aggressive strength training sessions, because those are going to go a lot further as far as their capabilities, health, muscle mass, etc., going to go a lot further in improving that than doing hours a week or building up to hours a week of steady state aerobic activity. Now, when it comes to the strength training, you need to think of it like compounding investments. When you got a job as a 20-year-old, you didn't expect to be rich overnight, but you knew, probably through your parents or whoever taught you about money, that if you invested a little bit over time, compounding interest would take over and you have a large sum when you're ready to retire. Now, strength training is no different. You need to build up the capacity to work out intensely 3 to 5 days a week. You don't start on week 1 with intense strength training 3 to 5 days a week. You start 3 days a week with moderate strength training. You pick weights in the weight room that you can lift with moderate intensity. And then over time, you slowly start to crank the intensity up. And that, unfortunately, I wish it was easier than this, but that is the only way to improve your strength and muscle mass, is to move weights that are challenging for you and actually building up a sweat when you're lifting weights. And it needs to be done more frequently. People over 60 can't get by with strength training twice a week. They need to have 3 to 5 days a week of frequency with short duration, high intensity workouts. And again, the word high intensity might be intimidating, but it's all relative. What intense is to you might not be intense to this person over here. So you need to make sure that you're training with enough intensity and frequency and not losing all of your calories and muscle mass through high volume aerobic activity. So lifting 3 days a week, 3 to 5 days a week intensely, and cutting out some of your cardiorespiratory aerobic activity is going to go a lot further to build strength and muscle than getting in a pool for an hour or going for a hike with your friends.